going to make it to this one, Caroline?
Not that they made us aware, no. Is it showing Tyler or anyone else in the waiting room?
No.
We don't have quorum. You're muted.
Thanks. I was going to say 6 can be a little tight for John and Brian sometimes, but I would think that we'd see Craig here shortly. Here's Brian. Great. We're close here now. Great. Here we go. Okay.
John said he's having trouble getting in.
Okay. I did as well, but I had plenty of time, so I just completely got out of my browser and tried again, and it was fine.
I was trying to get in on the normal council link and it wasn't working. I had to use the one on the budget workshop thing. So I don't know if that's the issue.
Good point.
Yeah, that's 2 different Zoom links.
Okay, that's good housekeeping. So we will need to save time to log into that and get into the 7 o'clock meeting. Maybe we'll try to wrap up at about 1:45 if we can, to allow for that and give people a chance to stretch. Well, since we're all close here, I'd like to get Dean on because I can see maybe he's there. He's muted, but he may be able to hear us. Dean, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. All right, well, I think John will be able to jump right in where we start here. And I don't want to waste any time, so we can convene our budget workshop. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance on the 7 o'clock meeting, but we'll just get to it. Caroline has outlined us the changes that are made to the budget since the last meeting. So we have to discuss these options or cuts or any suggested other changes from council. Caroline, anything you want to outline based on your discussions that led to these possible points of negotiation?
Yeah, in terms of the changes to the budget, I think kind of the larger ones were an approval from the Utilities Commission for a greater contribution to the operating budget. And basically, we would dedicate a significant portion of our federal grant funds to the new sewer computer. And then in addition, they would contribute more towards our operating budget for this one-time sewer system computer expense. So this would be a one-time contribution that we're asking for, and this was approved. And then staff that were hired in 2021 would only receive a one-step increase. And part of that is that two-step was really to make up for a lost step, which would not be impacted if you were hired in 2021. I worked with our fire chief on some slight reductions. We did get our final healthcare costs back, and they were a 9% increase in healthcare costs. That kind of motivated me to start thinking about, should we start shopping around for healthcare again? And just, we recently collected data on all the healthcare plans from surrounding municipalities. But it does appear that because we're going with a plan, the PEIP type plan, overall our healthcare, what the city has to contribute towards the healthcare overall seems to be lower than other places. And then again, we just did some modest increases in camping fees. We also discovered, Tyler and I, and just combing through the budget, that we had significantly overestimated what we were receiving in interest from our basically our savings. I think estimates were in there back when, you were getting a return on your investments in the savings account, and that's declined. I believe Tyler plans to look into this to see if we can get a better interest rate, but at this time we just have to go with what historically we've been getting. So that was kind of a knock against us on the budget there. So where we're at is about an 8% levy increase. We did get the new tax assessments back, and so that would give us a 76% tax rate. And I think last year we were at about 74%. And then ahead of the meeting, we provided some information for you all to look at if you wanted to look at the impact of potential increases or a franchise fee ahead of the meeting.
Thanks, Caroline. Any questions for Caroline about those items?
Were the health insurance premiums included in the latest estimates?
The 9% increase? Okay, yes, it was. So that's what you're looking at, is with the 9% increase.
Carolyn, we still have employees taking on some of the premium increases, correct?
Yep, so that leaves in with employees taking on the same amount of premium increases as we originally estimated. We didn't tack on an additional premium increase. I think originally, we kept that number the same. So they are contributing. Everyone's premiums goes up next year, and I think it's the same amount as was provided in previous memos. If you want us to look that up, we can, but I don't think it was a number that wasn't insignificant. So I think, was it a 7% increase for premiums going up, or I forget. So I can look that up, but.
Thanks for these items, a couple new ones that I hadn't considered. So any desire to discuss the franchise fee at this point, or are there further discussion? Would anyone have any further questions on the items just proposed that bring us to the 8.2? We can move on to the franchise fee discussion then, if you want to get us up to speed on that recommendation. So staff have recommended that we draft an ordinance to implement a franchise fee for December 2021, and Carolyn can outline the thinking behind that.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, I was asked to look at what businesses exactly would be impacted by the higher dollar amounts. And they were unable to provide that information because it's considered private information as to what category our local businesses fit into. But in looking at other communities' rates, I drafted a new proposed rate that I think before we had $80 a month increases or $100 a month increases. And I understood from the discussion that that was what was not palatable. And so I lowered the commercial demand, small interruptible. Again, we don't know who this is exactly, but we're assuming those are larger commercial businesses to $10 a month. And the commercial non-demand to about $4 a month. And then it's a total of $3 between electric and residential for gas and electric. And I asked to be provided an estimate for that. And it came to approximately $76,000 in revenue that would be provide. So in the agenda packet, I provided an estimate of where, if we just did a lower estimate of about 65,000 in revenue from this next year, what would that do in terms of the levy increase? And I guess I'm recommending this, that we could start drafting the ordinance process. That would require public hearings and different processes. But it would provide just a new revenue source for the city of Wabasha, given the current state of our capital improvement fund. I understand that this was tried in 2013 and perhaps previously, and there wasn't an interest in it. I will say, just listening to the radio, I understand that everyone's going to get like a 10 or 20% rate increase this year, which would be bad timing. So I think that would be kind of a con, but on the other hand, it sounds like they're going up regardless. So, and you know, I think Excel has certain standards, and I know overall this would be a very small percentage increase. Ahead of the meeting, Craig Falcom contacted Ross and clarified that we would take off street lighting and municipal pumping. It would not make sense to charge ourselves and then pay that back to ourselves. It'd just be a lot of paperwork. And Ross said that that would not significantly change the annual estimated revenue that he provided if we remove those items. And so if there's any other questions on that, I know that Craig did have a conversation with Ross about that.
Yeah, I did have a conversation with him because I was wondering, it's only $2 for the street lighting. Is that $2 per household or $2 for the city? And he said, yeah, the city's got 7 accounts. And it would be $2 in each of those 7 accounts. So it'd be, so it'd be $14 that we'd be paying or something in that neighborhood each month. And then we get it back in 90 days at the end of the quarter. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to do that part. But I was concerned that I was afraid it was going to be per household. So looking at this, I don't know. It's another tax. It's just another way of taxing people and households. The advantage, I guess, is that it also taxes tax exempt households. So if there are churches, the Eagle Center's got 4 properties on Main Street. If there's other tax exempt, they're going to have to pay these franchise fees. So it's a minimal income or increase but it's just another way of getting money, and it's our money they're getting, so it's coming back to us. So I don't know. It's just another way of it's another form of a tax.
Being that we need public hearings and stuff, I would say let's advance this and we can always kill it later if we get really bad negative feedback.
Would anyone be able to provide comment on if we would be utilizing this to lower the tax levy and include that in our budget estimates? Then we would need to know that we were for sure moving forward, or we would delay putting it in the budget till we have those public hearings. I guess, we have to have the budget done by end of December, so.
Yeah, I don't, my opinion is I'm not totally sure residents and businesses really want this additional fee. Obviously, Craig says it's minimal, which it kind of is, but it's my fear is it's not ever going to go away. And then it's always going to be, well, let's just increase the franchise fee another $1, and let's just increase it another $1, over time. And really, what's going to stop us from doing that? And that's truly my biggest concern. Now, I did read an article, I think Caroline mentioned Excel wants to increase over the next 3 years by 20%. I don't know what that's going to end up being. It could be 5%, it could be 40%, but I just think it's a burden. Obviously, our budget is a little higher this year because we're trying to catch up from last year, not putting into the CIP, which is, that's the bulk of the increase if you look at it close enough. So I don't know. I hesitant to start this. And then if we do start it, it's not going to happen by December. So we're going to have to accommodate some of that money that we, January, February, that we're not going to get from the franchise fee. So I'm not totally sure if that's the best approach this year or not. I think it's more, should we discuss it next year in June and start that process and go forward? But I'm not a big fan of it right now.
Thank you, Tim.
I think it's 2 separate issues. I don't think that if we're going to do this, or at least put it to a public hearing, I think the intent should be that this is going to bolster our CIP because there's a tangible return to the entire community by that. So our taxes are what they are, and to use it for taxes, I don't think that's very palatable. But I think if we decided to use this as a way to continue to bolster our CIP, which is going to need more help as we move forward, I think that might be a little more palatable. And I would, Dean's right. Public sentiment will come out in the public hearing. So we don't need to do this. We might hear enough people saying we don't want to do this. But if we're clear in our presentation that it's going to go towards CIP, it might have a different take.
Thanks,
Yeah,
John.
we should make sure we draft the ordinance so that the funds are going to be dedicated to the CIP. I mean, it is another tax, and it's not something we really want to do, but as long as it's dedicated to CIP, like I said, draft the ordinance and see what the public response is to it. If they don't like it, we don't do it.
I think I'm hearing consensus. You feel like you're getting the same kind of central message, Caroline? We don't need to rush this. If we're doing it to address the levy, we're not doing it for the reasons that we think is justified. So we can move forward at with the timing that seems appropriate. Tim, you had mentioned June. Are you thinking just because that's when we kick in on the budget process, or would it?
Yeah, I just
anytime?
picked the time, but can I just get a clarification? So if we do a franchise fee this year, we wouldn't have to put in 150,000 in the CIP. We would cut that down to whatever we're going to make, correct? So I mean, either way, the problem I fear is it's not going to happen overnight. So let's just say, if we do take it to public hearing by, December, January, probably likely, well, we have to have a budget approved by December. So are we hamstringing ourselves a little bit? Are we thinking we cut the CIP contribution into, half that, and then we're hoping that the franchise fee supplies the rest, or what? Because I don't see us winning out this year.
And where do you have the CIP in that figure that gets us to the 8.2, Caroline? What would it need to be restored? Are we needing to think that through?
The 8.2 is at 150,000. So in my notes below, we probably would want to make it even more conservative, but I assume that if you took 65,000 out of there, so that would leave us with an $85,000 contribution that would lower the levy to 5%. But we might want to, that would assume that public hearings go well, we adopt the ordinance, and we start, adding this to people's bills next March or April. So that was assuming a lower levy amount, but probably the more conservative option would be to just keep the levy at the 8.2% with $150,000 that's coming out of property tax dollars. But if it strengthens the argument of, look, we're lowering your property taxes, but supplementing that with a franchise fee. Am I making sense? So.
Did you say the budget?
Emily's gone.
Did you say the 8.2 includes a franchise fee or does not?
Does not include the franchise fee.
Okay, great.
I had to kick an animal out of our budget meeting.
So just to clarify, the 8.2% increase does not include a franchise fee in that.
Does anyone recall obviously you reversed the decision, so it wasn't, it didn't meet the public's or some of the public's satisfaction at that time. But do those who were around when it was implemented before recall that it was in any way, technically challenging to implement? It doesn't sound like it would be. It's simply an addition to the bill, right?
It wasn't going to be technically challenging at all to implement, but it was pretty punitive to the larger businesses in the community. I think they were talking about $200 a month or something like that, if memory serves. So it was pretty exorbitant at those levels. So that's, I think, why there was really a great deal of pushback. There was plenty of discussion with respect to this is a way to capture those residents that don't pay any property taxes. And
yeah,
there was discussion back on that as well. They probably pay it through their rent. It's just kind of, just mislabeled or labeled differently. I'm still kind of for leaving it at 8.2%, leaving it as is, pursuing the franchise fee. Because next year's sooner than we think. And it'd be nice to come back with a much lower increase or maybe a flat proposal for next year, which would be kind of nice. So as much as we're doing this right now, we're really doing it for probably next year.
And you don't need us to we don't need to formally make motion to that. I mean, can we give you that? I can never remember the rules of our workshops. Can we give you that direction with this uniform kind of consistent messaging? And obviously the decision gets made at council.
Yeah, that was what I was looking for, is some direction. And do we include these numbers in the budget? And it sounds like there's not consensus on we use franchise fee to lower the levy this year because we're just not far enough in the process, which I think makes
That's what I'm
sense.
hearing. Yeah. And I'm seeing some nods. Yeah. Okay. So I think you've got that direction. Then we just move forward in earnest so we don't find ourselves, in a position where time is of the essence again. And then we give proper timing, obviously we have to by process, but we have to give, I think, a clear message in that public hearing so that people know what they're responding to. I can understand people being for or against this differently if they understood what the intent is, what the city's intent is for that fee. Nobody wants to pay a fee in principle, but I think it depends on what it's for, how it's going to be utilized for the public's good.
So let's make sure that the dedicated funds to the CIP is actually in the draft ordinance, because I think that'll go a long way to convincing anybody that this is the right thing.
Yes, we'll add that.
All right. Very good. I mean, there's no need for us to sit here and stare at each other until 7 o'clock. We can certainly have a minute. Probably some people haven't even had a chance to eat dinner. So is there anything further for us, Caroline, or can we adjourn?
Is there any desire to discuss any of the proposed cuts in the first item? Do you want me to review those cuts? No. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for
I-
that. I mean, this kind
I
of stuff
am,
happens till the end each year, but it's very appreciated and it's very, each change I think is helpful.
so when I was looking over this stuff, I was looking at the tax rate comparison with Wabasha, with other cities in southeastern Minnesota, and this came out on August 20th. So I don't know if that's been updated, but you had Wabasha, the tax on $150,000 home was $1,015. So my home is appraised at $200,000, but I'm paying $1,400. I'm paying significantly more than $1,015. So I just think we need to be cognizant of the fact that I don't know if all these figures are exact. And so some of those people like me are going to have, we're paying more than $1,015. And so bear that in mind when we start to raise the taxes, what that does.
Were you looking at city taxes only? Did you separate out
city.
school district?
No.
Okay.
City taxes only, I paid, this year I paid $13.95.
Okay, then I think I will need to, Tyler and I will have to revise those figures then, because clearly they're wrong. So,
Well, unless it takes a big jump, if you go from 150 to 200, the value of your home, but I can't imagine it takes that big a jump. Yeah, so if you take another look at those, just something so we have at least at the December meeting, we have some figures that maybe reflect better. Maybe $1,015 for some reason my taxes are more. I don't know. I'm hoping that everybody who has a $200,000 home has the same tax.
We
so
don't.
on
I'm not
this,
gonna I'm looking at
Works.
our block here, Craig. It really depends on the property. I've done that too and tried to make sort of sense of it, but you know, it depends on when it was most recently assessed or improvements. I mean, so my house is assessed similar to yours and it's not even close taxes wise. It's double what you're paying. So it's really kind of hard to do that comparison. So property specific.
Yeah, I just crunched the straight percentages. So you said $150,000 home is $1,015. Is that correct? So
Yeah.
if you apply that percentage to $200,000 home, it comes out to 1,353. So it's not far off of 1,400.
Okay, I
Yeah.
stand
It's hard.
corrected.
It's hard. I've tried to do that too. You go into the actual properties to kind of I just randomly, I'll just pick, you know, I know there's a little one over here and I'll try that one and then a big one over here. But it's really hard to compare property by property.
Yeah, Craig, I can send the calculation, but I just put in 200,000 value home and it does come up to 2022 tax amount of 1439. So
All right. Never mind.
and that's actually in the memo too. You can see on the first page of Caroline's memo at the bottom, it says tax property impact. That'll show it's got 100, 200, and $500,000 home. So I can send the calculation separately if you want to see that.
All right, anything further? Otherwise, we'll take a quick break and we'll reconvene. I think it would be good if everybody just gives us maybe you can get here like 5 to 10 minutes beforehand, just because we had a little technical issue for a couple people getting on. That'll just give city staff some peace of mind. Now we know we're all physically around. It's probably not going to be an issue. All right, we'll see you close to 7. Thanks, everybody.